Part 1. The Fall in Poland. Imagine a bone-chilling night in Poland. 3 o'clock in the morning. The streets are silent, illuminated only by the dim glow of street lamps. A young man named Dylan Wheeler, who had been a ghost in the machine since the age of 12, stands outside a local bank. He isn't there to bypass a digital firewall this time, he is there for a physical, old-school robbery. Only years prior, Dylan and a loose collective of teenagers had pulled off one of the greatest digital heists in history, stealing over $100 million in intellectual property from titans like Epic Games, Valve, Microsoft, and even the United States military. While his peers were already behind bars in American prison cells, Dylan had managed to flee the continent, eventually finding refuge in Poland. But his luck had run dry. He was broke, desperate, and living on the fringes. After meeting a group of local criminals in a dive bar, he heard that the security at a local bank was surprisingly lax, enough to justify a high-stakes gamble. Using his deep technical expertise, Dylan successfully shut down the bank's security system. The group moved like shadows, loading their bags with loot and walking out into the night as if nothing had happened. But as they sat in a cramped safe house, counting the cash and dreaming of the lives they would buy, they failed to notice one tiny detail. A hidden camera, independent of the main network, had captured every frame of Dylan's face. The infamous kid hacker, the fugitive who had outrun the Federal Bureau of Investigation, was finally caught. To understand how a teenage gamer ended up in a Polish prison, we have to travel back to the beginning, to a gaming console that Microsoft claimed was unhackable. Part 2. The Dev Kit Anomaly. When the Xbox 360 was released to the public, Microsoft spent millions of dollars to ensure its security was impenetrable. They wanted to kill the massive piracy and modding community that had plagued the original Xbox. For years, the hacking world hit a brick wall. The console would only run signed code, software that had been officially blessed by Microsoft's digital signature. Without that signature, your custom code was worthless. That changed when a specialized waste recycler known as Rowdy was scrounging through piles of plastic scrap. Rowdy had a strange hobby. He liked to repair broken electronics. But that day, he found something that shouldn't have existed outside of a high-security lab, an Xbox 360 development kit. A development kit, or dev kit, is the holy grail of console hacking. These machines are leased exclusively to professional game studios and are designed to run unsigned code so developers can test their unfinished games. Obtaining one legitimately requires industry references, professional resumes, and a mountain of non-disclosure agreements. However, due to the infamous Red Ring of Death hardware failure, thousands of units were being sent to recyclers to be destroyed. Rowdy rescued them instead. He began selling these rare machines to the most talented hackers he could find. One of those kits ended up in the hands of David Pecora, a Canadian programming prodigy who had been writing code since he was a toddler. David used the machine to create mind-blowing modifications for Halo 3. When he posted his work on specialized forums, the internet went into a frenzy. Everyone wanted to know how a teenager was running custom software on an unhackable console. One of those intrigued by David's work was Anthony Clark, an 18-year-old brilliant programmer. Anthony struck a deal. He would help David polish his Halo 3 mods if David gave him the contact information for the man selling the dev kits. A partnership was formed, and the foundation of the Xbox Underground was laid. Part 3. The Secrets of PartnerNet. David and Anthony soon discovered a hidden gateway on their dev kits, PartnerNet. This was a private, invitation-only version of Xbox Live where developers shared unreleased builds of upcoming games. For a teenage gamer, this was the equivalent of being given a key to a secret toy factory. They could download and play games months or even years before the rest of the world. They felt like members of an elite invisible club. However, the professional developers eventually noticed that ghost players were appearing in their private test sessions. Instead of a ban, the developers left a mocking message on the server dashboard for the hackers to find. Winners don't break into PartnerNet. By 2009, the secret was out. A group of hackers discovered the JTAG exploit, a hardware modification that allowed any retail Xbox to function like a dev kit. Suddenly, the demand for David and Anthony's cheats skyrocketed. They realized they were sitting on a goldmine. They began selling access to private lobbies where players could use super jump and infinite ammo to dominate online matches. They charged $100 an hour, and desperate kids with their parents' credit cards lined up. At their peak, these teenagers were earning $8,000 a day via PayPal. While Anthony focused on the financial potential, David was addicted to the thrill of the hunt. He wanted to see what else was hidden behind the corporate curtains of the world's biggest companies. Part 4. The Breach at Epic Games. The Underground's ambitions shifted from gaming to high-level corporate espionage when Dylan Wheeler, known online as Superday, entered the picture. Dylan was a brash Australian teenager who claimed to have been hacking since he was 12. He approached David with a massive lead, a leaked database containing thousands of login credentials for Epic Games employees. They quickly realized a fundamental truth of cybersecurity. Humans are the weakest link. Even the world's best engineers often reuse the same passwords across multiple platforms. Using these credentials, they bypassed Epic's internal defenses. Initially, they were frustrated because they only had access to IT support accounts. Dylan mocked the situation, saying they were stuck fixing printers and resetting passwords. But David had a better idea. He used the IT access to search every internal email for the word password. They hit the jackpot. A master Word document containing the plain text passwords for every single employee at the company. With the keys to the kingdom, they spent days exploring the CEO's personal files and even found a USB drive containing the music for the chairman's Lamborghini, a playlist dominated by Lady Gaga. But the ultimate prize was the source code for Gears of War 3. The game was highly anticipated and months away from release. They used a series of hacked modems and encrypted tunnels to download the massive file. When the game leaked onto the internet the next day, it became a national scandal. Epic Games was devastated, having spent over $60 million on development. David, consumed by paranoia, hacked back into Epic's servers just to watch the FBI agents coordinate the investigation into his own crimes. Part 5. The FIFA Coin Millions. While David was busy playing cat and mouse with federal agents, Anthony Clark was building a legitimate-looking empire. In the FIFA video game series, players earn FIFA coins by playing thousands of matches. These coins are used to buy virtual players for an ultimate team, but they couldn't be bought directly for cash from the publisher, EA Sports. Anthony noticed a thriving black market where Chinese websites sold these coins for real money and realized he could automate the grind. Anthony developed a sophisticated bot that could trick the EA servers into thinking a full match had been played in just a fraction of a second. A single dev kit running this bot could generate thousands of coins every minute. Anthony scaled the operation, buying dozens of machines and eventually making over $18 million in just 2 years. He bought a luxury mansion and a fleet of high-end cars. He hired accountants, attorneys, and other programmers to expand the business. While the technical work was genius, the legality was a massive gray area. Anthony argued that since EA Sports claimed the coins had no real-world value for tax purposes, he couldn't be guilty of stealing anything of value. The government, however, had a different perspective. Part 6. Infiltrating the mothership. The Xbox Underground's control over Epic Games gave them a backdoor into the Unreal Engine, the software framework used by nearly every major game developer and even defense contractors. This allowed them to pivot into the networks of Intel, Nvidia, Valve, and Disney. But their most daring mission targeted Microsoft's headquarters in Redmond, Washington. They wanted the secrets of the next-generation console, then codenamed Durango, what would eventually become the Xbox One. They successfully stole the source code, technical specifications, and assembly instructions for the Durango prototype. They even used these documents to build their own counterfeit Durango using retail computer parts. But a member named Armand the Cyber wanted the real thing. Armand had a family connection who worked at Microsoft. He cloned an employee badge, dressed in a nondescript button-down shirt, and simply walked through the front doors of Microsoft's main campus. He bypassed the digital locks by taking the stairs to the 5th floor and shoved 2 genuine Durango prototypes into his backpack. He walked out past security without a single person stopping him. To David and the crew, it felt like they were invincible. Part 7. Ego and the FBI Trap. The group's downfall was not caused by a lack of skill, but by a lack of maturity. Dylan Wheeler, desperate to win arguments on gaming forums, began leaking the stolen Durango documents to prove he was an insider. He even went as far as putting one of the stolen Durango prototypes on eBay. This was the final straw for Microsoft. They began working directly with the FBI to set up a sting operation. A buyer from West Africa contacted the group, offering thousands of dollars for the prototype. In reality, every message was being logged by federal agents. Armand, the man who had physically stolen the consoles, made an even bigger mistake. After the heist, he actually applied for a professional job at Microsoft. The company invited him in for an interview, but when he arrived, he was led into a cold interrogation room equipped with cameras. Armand broke down and confessed to everything. In 2014, the FBI finally moved in. David Pecora and his father were stopped by customs at the United States border while driving to visit a friend. Officers recognized David's face from a secret indictment. He was arrested on the spot, becoming the first foreign hacker to be criminally charged in the U.S. for the theft of over $100 million in trade secrets. David, Nathan LaRue, and several others pleaded guilty and were sentenced to years in federal prison. Part 8. The tragedy of Anthony Clark. With the main group dismantled, the FBI turned their attention to Anthony Clark's FIFA coin operation. Despite Anthony's claims that he was simply using a bot to play a game he owned, the government charged him with conspiracy to commit wire fraud. His partners took plea deals, surrendering millions of dollars to avoid jail time. Anthony, however, chose to fight. He believed he was innocent of any crime. His attorneys argued that you cannot commit fraud over a digital currency that the manufacturer claims is worthless. But a jury was not convinced by the technicalities. They found Anthony guilty, and he faced decades in prison. The story ends in a heartbreaking tragedy. Just 1 week before his formal sentencing, Anthony Clark went out to celebrate his birthday. He spent the night laughing with friends and family, telling them he was ready for whatever came next. He went to bed that night and never woke up. The coroner ruled his death an accidental overdose, a lethal combination of alcohol and prescription medication. He was a brilliant, self-taught engineer whose life was cut short by the pressure of a legal system he didn't fully understand. Dylan Wheeler, the boy who started it all, remained a fugitive. He fled to the Czech Republic to avoid 22 felony charges in Australia. He spent years doing interviews with the media, mocking the authorities and claiming he was a reformed hacker while secretly engaging in money counterfeiting and further cybercrimes. His journey finally ended in Poland, where he was caught on camera robbing a physical bank. Today, Dylan Wheeler sits in a Polish prison serving a 10-year sentence. The surviving members of the Xbox underground have mostly moved on. David Pecora and Austin Alcala have built successful, legitimate careers as software developers and security consultants. They are no longer the reckless teenagers who wanted to play games for free. They are men who live with the weight of their past, having proven that in the digital age, a group of kids in their bedrooms can bring the world's most powerful corporations to their knees, but they can never truly outrun the consequences of their actions.